Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about the new Offspring album, Supercharged. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So the Offspring just released their new album, Supercharged, a couple of days ago on October 11th. And it was an album I was really looking forward to. I haven't been the biggest Offspring fan over the last, probably 15, 16 years. So when they released Let the Bad Times Roll back in 2021, it was an album I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for because there was really nothing on the last couple of albums prior to that I liked. There wasn't any good tracks on there. I thought they were really kind of like throwaway albums. So I didn't have a lot of expectations going into that album. And I was really surprised by it. It was an album that I think ended up in my top 20 albums of 2021. And while there were some really good songs on there, I had some issues with the production work on that one. But I thought the songs, quality-wise, were some of the best songs the band had done since probably Conspiracy 1, which was, 2000, I think, when that album came out. So when they announced they were going to release a new album this year, I guess cautiously optimistic is probably the best way to put it. It was an album that I was looking forward to, but because of, I think, how weak the first single was off of it, I didn't have super high expectations for it. So I was going to go into it, with an open mind, like I always do when I listen to new music. But, I wasn't expecting anything really great. So with Let the Bad Times Roll, I thought that was a big improvement over the two albums that came out before that. And I think probably my best case scenario for this new album was that it was going to be a continuation of the music off of that album. And I think in a lot of ways, it kind of is. Musically, I think they're very similar tracks to that one. I think the production work on Supercharged is definitely a lot better than what it was on Let the Bad Times Roll. I thought Let the Bad Times Roll wasn't like, the production work wasn't bad on there. It was just, I think, uneven is probably the best way to put it. Whereas I think they did a much better job with this new album. For the new album, the band brought back Bob Rock, so he's done the last 4 albums with the Offspring. I think he does a really good job. He's a really good producer. I don't have any big issues, like I said, with the production work on this album. Like I said, other than it maybe being or feeling a little overpolished at times, which I know is a really nitpicky thing, and it's something that I think a lot of people really don't care about. But I think, like, kind of going back to the those earlier years for the Offspring, I think there was always kind of a rougher part to the music, which I think kind of brought out the charm in some of their songs. So as far as the overall quality of these songs go, when I look at like really great albums, there's always typically a really good track that kind of kicks off the album, kind of sets the whole pace for the album. And with this album, there's not. So the album starts out with Looking Out for Number One, which I think is probably one of the weakest tracks on this album. And I think had they put any other track as the lead track, I think it would have been a better pick than that one. And I kind of feel the same way about the songs they picked as singles on this album also. Make It All Right was the lead single that they released when they announced the album. And I have not been a fan of that song. I've listened to it multiple times. It sounds more like a bad Beach Boys song than anything that the Offspring would do. And I feel like they could have easily picked a couple other tracks to be a lead single over that one. Then the band released Light It Up as the second single. And while it's a better track, overall it's just kind of okay for me. And then the third and final single that they released before the album came out was Come to Brazil, which I think is probably one of the worst songs on this album, and easily a song that I will skip every time I listen to it. And I know the Offspring are never going to be able to recapture the magic that they had on albums like Smash, which I think still is the best-selling independent album of all time. Ixnay on the Hombre, Americana, those are like great albums from that band. I know they're never going to be able to make albums like that again, but this album largely sounds like a band out of ideas. And I'm not totally down on this album. I thought there were some really good tracks on here. Truth and Fiction is probably one of my favorite tracks on the album. The Fall Guy's a good one. Get Some, Hanging by a Thread. Those are all songs that show to me that there is some fight left in the Offspring. Unfortunately, I just don't think there's enough to really salvage this album. I did find it really interesting that the last of the 10 songs on this album is You Can't Get There From Here. And the first couple of times I listened to it, I thought to myself, man, this song sounds really familiar. And I don't really know if it was the intent of the song, But after listening to it a couple more times, I realized it kind of uses the same melody as Gotta Get Away, which of course is a classic track, one of my favorite tracks from the Offspring. So overall, looking at this album, I think that there are areas on this album where I feel like there is an improvement over Let the Bad Times Roll. And then I feel like there's other times where they really kind of miss the mark. I think there's definitely more potential in some of these songs that maybe had they fleshed them out a little bit more, maybe they'd taken a little bit more time recording this album, they could have ended up being better tracks. But for a band that's been around for, 35 years, I expected more consistency on an album like this far into their career. And I guess one last positive I'll say about this album is it is 10 tracks, it's only 32 minutes long, it does feel very compact, it is a very easy album to listen to. But overall, I guess it's just, for me, it's just an okay album. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably have to give it a 4.5. And I think mainly I give it that score because there are some really good songs on this album. There are definitely songs that I will listen to again, but there's far too many songs on this album that are just kind of okay for me. And, 3 or 4 tracks are 100% absolutely skippable. And then lastly, would I ever own this album on vinyl or CD? I thought about pre-ordering it, and mainly because of how strong I thought Let the Bad Times Roll were. Even though I had some issues with that album, I thought, like I said, it was probably the best album the band had done in 20 years. But I wanted to hold off and listen to this one before I ordered it. I'm trying to be a little more selective with the albums I pick up recently. And even though this isn't, a super expensive album, I think you can get this album for less than $30. It's one that I probably won't pick up a copy unless I can find it on sale somewhere. Maybe I can pick up the CD for maybe $10 or $12. Maybe I'll grab that. But this is an album that I don't see myself owning on vinyl. So even though I didn't have super high expectations for this one, I still feel a little disappointed by this album, mainly because, like I said, there are good tracks on here. I think there is potential there, but there's just something missing, some of the magic missing on this album. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think of this album. Have you listened to it? Are you planning on buying a copy of it? Where would you put this as far as ranking it among albums from the Offspring? Let me know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.